Hi everyone, you're really going to enjoy this today. I have with me Hope Fitzgerald. What a beautiful name that is as well. And we're going to be sharing some information, very unusual, very unique information that Hope has brought forwards for us. And since 2010, she's been passionately sharing the infinity wave, which is this is what we're going to be talking about, the infinity wave. And it's a 10th dimensional tool revealed to her in a series of visions, which I'm going to be asking about in a moment. And what this does, the infinity wave, is to accelerate personal and global spiritual evolution. And we are right in that wave, excusing the pun, right now. And this leads us to more joy, more freedom, even through very turbulent times, which in huge times of change right now. So her recent best-selling book, The Infinity Wave, Mastering the Art of Love, Compassion and Flow, describes the wave's outstanding arrival and all the lessons it's brought over the years since 2010. So she's conducted workshops on this energy, and also the wave, the infinity wave, has helped her bring through a channel or become a channel for a wide range of etheric masters, which is just really beautiful. So she's been a dedicated spiritual guide for nearly 30 years. She uses intuitive dowsing. She's an absolutely expert dowser. And this has helped to empower clients with rapid life insights and transformations. She's also an energy healer, a certified neurofeedback practitioner, a death doula. She integrates sound, Reiki, and essential oils into her work. So a very rich toolkit for us to talk about. So welcome, Hope. Wonderful to be sharing this time with you. Thank you for being here.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure, Pam. I'm such a huge fan of yours.
Oh,
Been
bless
following
you.
for quite a while.
Well, we all have our unique piece of the puzzle, and you certainly have a very unique piece. So I'd love to hear, just to start, how did these visions start to arrive of the
Mhm.
infinity wave?
Well, when I look back, it makes sense to me how I prepared unknowingly my field to receive them. I had no premonition about it at all. I never had visions before, and but the bed that was laid for them to come in is kind of an important piece, for all of us who are journeying and looking for the next level, so to speak. I had had a very, very challenging year in 2010, very difficult family circumstances, traumatic, I could say. And around about September, October, I knew that I was completely empty, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And when you get to that point, you're vulnerable for illness, whatever. And so I was like, okay, I've got to do something to refill my tanks. So I went out to my beloved teacher, Tom Kenyon, who's a sound healer of some repute. He's just an amazing person. And for the only time in his life, he did back-to-back weekends of sound healing. I went for the whole thing. And I went in literally feeling like a warrioress on a horse, just galloping in to clean out my inner bowl, scrub it down, scrub it down. I wanted to erase all story. I just wanted a clean slate. And every single practice, that's what I did. And I started having this kind of interaction with him on a dream level and all this stuff. It was really amazing. Anyway, by the last practice of the last day, I had had everything answered, stories evaporated. I had one last question, and that was, why did I need such a dramatic year of events? I picked things up pretty subtly. Like, why did I need this frying pan on my head? And not that it was all about me, but I was in the story. So what was that all about? And in the last practice, I received my answer, and I was so overjoyed by the reframe, by the information. It set me free. And so in my mind's eye, I was just sitting there on the bench. But in my mind's eye, I went prostrate on the floor, and out of me came this utterance: I am a willing vessel, do with me what you will. That was out of my gratitude. I I'm not in the habit of saying such things. It just sprang from me. And I was weeping. I was just so, so grateful for this information. I had 3 days of utter bliss with no story. It was incredible. And I came home and I had a dear friend over, and I was starting to tell her about my experience. I was walking across my living room, and there in front of me, and I never knew what visions were like. Like, are they solid? Are they see-through? What are they? And I really, to this day, can't describe it perfectly. It's like a combination, for me at least, of a semi-solid and project, like a almost see-through projector. It's hard to describe, but it was a huge wave, 10 stories high, beautiful turquoise color, moving slowly towards me. And I stopped. I was, stunned. I stood there in my living room, and I fortunately could tell my friend, I'm seeing this giant wave, and there seems to be this byline that's coming with it, almost like a ticker tape across the bottom. And I'll paraphrase it. Said, this wave represents a push of evolution that is coming to the planet and going to be anchoring in at the end of 2011. This was now early November 2010. If you resist this wave, much like if you're at the beach and a big wave comes, it's going to knock you down. You're going to have a hard time. If you learn to swim with it, surf it, then things will go easier for you. Then that wave turns on its side. So now it's like that big letter C that you'd see the surfer coming through. And this byline was, as the ocean water pulls away from the shore and deepens into the seabed to create the crusting. That's how the physics of a wave works. So should you leave all your book learning, all your so-called knowledge on the shore, go to the earth, go to the wisdom keepers of the earth for your knowledge, and then mix that with this incoming push of whatever this giant wave push was. And then this letter C didn't just fall back down into the water, but it became this figure 8 of flowing water like that. And there was no byline, and it hung out in front of my head about 18 inches high, about 18 inches out, like this. And it stayed there for 3 days. I could see through it. I was aware of it. I was busy doing life. And finally, after 3 days, it was a wee bit annoying, as you would say, or I would say if I was whatever. I just thought, okay, I got to figure out what this is. And I sat down with my dowsing rods. And fortunately, by that point, I had been dowsing for about 15 years or so. And I had a way of speaking with my dowsing rods that was a little bit unconventional, because I had taught myself how to dowse. I had learned because I had taken a course in feng shui. I had been a designer at one point, and the woman who taught the course came in with wire hangers one night and just started cutting them up and started teaching us about dowsing, because you can use it in feng shui to great effect. So in those days, there was no internet yet. And I had 2 little babies, and I wasn't going to go rushing off to the library and looking up dowsing with 2 little babies. It was just not in my world at that point. So I taught myself, not even aware that there were other dowsers out there. It was so funny. Anyway, I sit down with my rods and I start asking questions. And in a nutshell, I'm told this is a 10th dimensional energy. So the figure 8 made of flowing water is a representation of this energy. It's something we can grasp onto with our human minds in terms of a shape and a movement and material. And that within that watery flow, inherent in it, is this 10th dimensional love and compassion. Now, at that time, I knew about dimensions. I didn't know that much. I still don't know that much. So I don't get hung up on the 10th D part of it. But what I learned, what I began to learn as I went through the experience of meeting the infinity wave was that 10D emotion, it's not really emotion. 10D love and compassion is beyond emotion. It's the most crystalline, light, purified essence. And it's not that we immediately get that when we use the infinity wave, but what happens is a meeting, a sprinkling of that energy added into this density that opens the gates to something else. And I'll talk more about that later. But I didn't know yet that while I'm dowsing here. I'm like, okay, it's an energy. Okay. They said you need to create workshops about this. Oh, right. No, I'm not going to do that. Because I always consider myself a student, and I do to this day. I'm a journeyer, learning about spirituality. And I never wanted to be in the front of the room on that topic. I mean, every other topic that I know about, yes, I've been a teacher, producer, performer, et cetera, et cetera. But do not ask me to get into the front of the room on my little private Idaho of my own personal spiritual journey. No. Well, then they reminded me of what I had said on that last practice. I'm a willing vessel, do with me what you will. So I was really pushed into my discomfort zone. And I began a journey of deep trust. And so that's how it began.
Fantastic. And can you just in a very practical way explain how people can use this as well, so everybody understands? So this is the image, and essentially, as I understand it, it can be any color, any size, any direction. Even it can be horizontal, vertical. You can use it within you. You can use it between people, you and the earth. So, can you elaborate a little bit on the kind of practical use of it?
Absolutely. I'd love to do that. First of all, there are two tracks with the infinity wave. There is the deep transformational track, which is what it first came to us and this group of people who did these workshops with me in the first year, which is a step-by-step process to move up on the spiral of evolution, if that's what a person wishes to do. I didn't know that as I was going through them all. They only spooled out one per week. So it took 3 months to get the whole 9 practices. But looking back, then I realized, oh my gosh, this is a blueprint for how to evolve if you wish to do that right now. You go through this process. So that's the deep transformational piece. But then I also love to talk about the daily wave. How do you use it in daily life? How can it enhance your life immediately? So it really relies on our imagination and knowing before we even do one thing with it that there is no wrong way to do it. We tend to, as humans, we effort it, we try hard, I can't imagine it, no, it's not like that. There's no right, no wrong way to do it. Think of it as a living energy that wants to dance with you if you invite it in. Just say, hey, infinity wave, please come and be with me, dance in my life. Let's work together. Whether you can imagine it or not, just that invitation, it will start to work with you. It's very, very simple. I can teach it to a 3-year-old in about 30 seconds. All we do is imagine a watery figure 8 like this, any direction, as you said, even 3D, it looks like an hourglass. And imagine it having this ability to stretch. So if you and I do it right now, Pam, so I have one end of the figure 8 loop in my heart, and you'll put the other end in your heart. And now across time and space, we're going to let the water flow between us. It is that easy. And what starts to happen, what's happening now, right now, what starts to happen is the water in you and the water in me are being structured in a 10th dimensional love and compassion. So now our conversation is going to lift somewhere, not confined only in 3D. We don't know where it needs to go. We don't know, we don't need to know that. But it's now we're connected with this incredible essence of love and compassion, which I already feel for you. But to have the wave doubling down with us is a good thing. I start to feel it. I start to feel a little lightheaded. I start to feel motion. Like I start to want to wave, literally wash ashore and come back with you. And now I know we're connected in this beautiful essence. That's how easy it is. We can use it in our own bodies. We can use it head to toe. That's a really lovely way. And especially if you're going to sleep at night and you have a hard time dropping off, wrap yourself, I call it the infinity cradle, head to toe, and just let the water flow at a very easy, trickly, delightful water fountain pace. Now, if you need, and it'll relax you, it'll calm you, and it kind of holds you in the gentle way that water could hold us. I also love to use the wave to turn up the volume of it, to turn up the pace. If I am triggered by something, this is the most amazing thing about the wave. Well, not the most, but one of the most. It can change our emotional state in a nanosecond. I've had it not only happen to me, but I've been witness to it with other people, and they come out of it with this shock because they've gone from rage, upset, whatever it is, to utter lightness in no time at all. And I have witnesses. I mean, not making it up. I have stories I can tell if you wish. But that using the wave to shift emotional states is one of the most potent things about it. And why that's important, as you and I both know, is that the times that we are in are so essential. It's so essential that we maintain an equilibrium, a state of lightened well-being through all the chaos. That's why the wave is here. It is a gift from a loving universe to help us maintain that state in chaos.
Beautiful. And
So
it's interesting. I actually used it last week with a challenging local relationship with somebody who wouldn't understand any of what we're talking about. And it was quite miraculous. And that relationship has stayed at a sort of upgraded level ever since I used the infinity wave. So it's really interesting. So it's a consciousness within itself. It's a consciousness within itself, as you're speaking, Hope, that connects people, kind of smooths the waves between people and smooths the waves within us. If we have an agitated emotion or pain or restlessness or insomnia, there's a smoothing, a softening effect that seems to come in with this. Is that correct?
yes, very much so, very much so. And I wanted to mention something before we recently I had told the story about the three visions. And in the second one, the one where it's the letter C and it's about pulling away, somebody said to me, well, that's Sedna.
Oh,
Oh my goodness.
wow.
It surely is. It's Sedna going down to the bottom. That's where the information is, and coming up.
Yeah,
And the funny thing is, I had never heard of Sedna until I was visiting the famous gals who have the acutonics tuning forks and the big gongs out in New Mexico in Taos. I went to visit them and meet them and go through their whole incredible array of sound tools, because I had singing bowl, I played the bowls and I did all kinds of things already by that point. And they had just unwrapped their newest gong. They said, this is Sedna. I'd never heard of Sedna before. They chimed her, and I went, oh my God, who is Sedna? Like it was such an immediate, oh, I already was doing the wave by that point. And so ever since then, whenever I hear about Sedna, I'm like, what's happening with Sedna? Not even realizing the connection between that second vision and her.
Amazing. Yeah, because she really is going to offer us an evolutionary jump. She has an 11,400 year orbit, and she's coming back to one of her closest, well, the closest point to the Earth. It'll take about another 50 years, but that's a drop in the bucket if you've got an 11,400 year orbit. But she's very much about the metamorphosis of humanity, not just the transformation that. And last time she entered Gemini, which is what she's just hopped into on April 27th, it was really the beginning of a huge jump in consciousness then, and wonderful civilizations like Göbekli Tepe, the building of that, and all the development in consciousness then. So we're just at the very beginning point of understanding Sedna moving into Gemini. But Gemini is about connection. Gemini is the mind, it's about networks, it's about connection. And it's really going to expand in a way we can barely articulate all our connections to the cosmos, I want to say, the galactic connections, the neural
Yes.
network. It's going to be a big, big jump in consciousness that we hardly have the imagination for. Wow, that's so exciting.
Isn't that?
Wow. So, do you feel since you've been using this, Hope, that it's evolved your consciousness step by step,
Oh,
or jump by jump by jump?
absolutely. I was only a teeny weeny tiny step ahead of everybody else who was in the first workshops because I was scrambling. How do I even make sense of this? I don't even know what the heck this is. I was learning side by side, but I will say this, and it's kind of interesting. I had a mother who was very open-minded and thankfully opened all these windows for me in terms of healing and meditation. She got me meditating at 17 and she had healing workshops in her home and all that kind of thing. And so I chose the right mom, let's just say, because I ate it up with a spoon, being who I am, literally by the age of 9, asking her to take me to all the spiritual houses in town because I was looking for something. And God bless her, she did. And I didn't find it, but I was seeking, you know. And so at 21, she had shown me this book that she had about Findhorn in northern Scotland and that beautiful community. Well, I just was compelled to get on a plane and go there, which I did in 1976. And that completely blew the cork in my it took me to another level, let's put it that way. One of the things that they taught there was a theory of evolution as understood by Teilhard de Chardin, the 19th century, Renaissance man, philosopher, priest, anthropologist, list goes on. And he had this theory that evolution happened in a series of what he would call peduncles. Well, that's the English way of saying it, but it's a French word, biology word, for where a tulip stem, let's say, a flower comes up and then blossoms out. That connection, right, is called a peduncle, pedunc. So what he thought was, let's talk about a series of atoms. And I describe this in my book because it's the easiest way to kind of grasp it. If you had a bottle with a narrowing neck, like a wine bottle or something like that, we know every matter is moving, right? Spiraling, and all these atoms are collecting in the fat part of the bottle, and they're spiraling upwards. And as they start to narrow, they start to have friction. And when they get into the bottleneck, that friction actually, the squeeze, that's the peduncle, forces them to have an alchemical change. And they become a slightly larger, slightly more elegant thing, a molecule. Now, he also believed, as we kind of know now, science has proven, there is some kind of element in the tiniest of things. He called it the God spark. This God spark would grow as each element grew, right? So the molecule God spark is just a little bit bigger than the atom God spark. And you go through the chain of all creatures, and we get to humanity. And then the very slow line as we get to humanity goes straight up like this. And what he talked about back then in the 1800s was there was a superhuman, and he showed it with a larger head. Now, actually, skulls are getting bigger. Over the last 40 years, skulls have been getting bigger. But we also understand it as an expansion of our brain capacity. We would be moving into, and we already are, and have been for a while now, more intuition, more ESP, more connectivity, more ability to exactly what Sedna is talking about, right? Connectivity to the cosmos and the field, and I could go on and on. So I went back to that, and I started to think about the fact that even then, evolution, even when the wave came in, evolution was something that happened way in the background at a snail's pace. But when I looked back on that Fintor material, I realized, and I was learning from the wave every day, what we're really talking about is being conscious of our evolutionary process, and that it needed to happen faster. We no longer had, because time is elastic and time is indeed speeding up, we no longer had the time to go to a cave somewhere in India and stare at our navel for 30 years. Like, that isn't gonna work. We have been given this tool to speed things up, to help us evolve quickly. And then I realized, well, then our peduncles are going to become much more obvious, right? So even the figure 8, the shape of it represents in and out of peduncles. You expand and you contract. You expand and you contract. And it goes around and around. It's always moving. There's no stop in the middle. They don't connect in the middle. So we're always in a series of peduncles evolution and realizing that evolution, and then coming back into another peduncle and another expansion. And it's the flow of all life. It's a macro and a micro. So once I realized, and of course, by the way, all during 2011, when I'm blindly leading the blind, God, very uncomfortable, but really, you asked the question, did I evolve? One of the main ways that I evolved was through trusting 100% in my guidance, in this message, it made no logical sense to me. I was also not the youngest person to take on such a thing. And I was like, couldn't you get somebody younger? They're like, no. You I created the vessel, really, by emptying out so much with Tom Kenyon to let this thing come in. And I guess I had a unique setup for it. So that year, by the way, in 2011, first thing I do, look online for infinity signs, nowhere to be found, not in packaging, not in logos, not in jewelry, nowhere, nowhere, nowhere. Then I look up conscious evolution. The only mention was Barbara Marx Hubbard had some course, some mention. I looked into it. It wasn't what we were talking about. So I just went on, and I learned so much from trusting, so much from that's where all the juice was. And I always say now, how can the universe catch you if you're not willing to leap? Many of us have our toes curled around the cliff. We're like, almost there, almost there, almost there. but letting go of our reality, even for somebody who was a fairly well-traveled person in this world and in that world of spirituality, I was surprised to encounter my resistance. And there was no way forward except by leaping. So so I did. And then the world opened up to information, to understandings, just direct understandings. And then I started to channel and all that stuff happened. So yes, I've evolved a great, great deal, and I'm still evolving.
So
So
it's a very simple, impossible to corrupt or interfere with evolutionary tool to help us to jump into the new human or homo luminous or wherever we are headed as a new form of human species, because that's what happened with Sedna, as you know. She became beautiful sea creatures. She went from being a goddess into turtles and whales and dolphins. She actually changed form, and that's what we're going to do. So this delightfully simple infinity wave is going to help us make those jumps. But it's almost like I mean, it's quite like Veda's work in a way, isn't it? Because you're starting to have a
yes,
conversation with the water element in this,
yes.
and you also set very clear intentions every time you use this as well, Hope. Or is it in such a flow of your life that you don't even think about that anymore?
I don't have to think about it too much anymore. I set an intention when I'm driving somewhere. I'll ask for, just smooth sailing, or flying or something like that. I don't have to conjure it very much anymore. I do recommend to people though, because in the beginning, I had to print it out and put it on my refrigerator and my mirror and my car, to remember to stay in wave energy. So I do recommend that to people because we kind of slingshot back
Yeah,
to
yeah.
what's known. We tiptoe out into these unknown places and then whoop, and so it takes some little diligence in the beginning. But what's beautiful is that that efforting that those of us who went on the beginning journeys in 2011, that efforting is not as necessary now because now there's an egregore, there's a morphogenetic field of the infinity wave that has grown over the years. So now people get it like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And they, oh, yeah, okay, I can do that. Oh, I feel that right away. I was recently on a trip in Nepal, and there's one group practice that I do called the Infinity Wheel, and
Now that's in the
everybody
book,
stands in a
Heart.
circle.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's in the book, and I highly recommend it for any kind of group activity. In fact, I say before anybody learns anyone's names, do the Infinity Wheel when you're without identity. You're just a clean human being, right, to the other people in the group. And you stand opposite each other and you wave one another. So when you have a circle, then if you looked down, you'd see this beautiful flower pattern where all the petals, right? And so recently in Nepal, I was in a group and started the practice, and the people did not know the infinity wave. So I was just saying, imagine a figure eight of flowing water between your hearts. And one guy is a healer, and he used to be a world wrestling guy. So he's a big guy. And he started to wave with his partner, and he starts to rock off his feet. He's like, I thought he was going to levitate in seconds. The wave was so in his being that it was almost lifting him off into the air. He had to kind of keep coming back. It's powerful, powerful.
wow.
Even if, and I have a fun thing that I do, a little test when I'm teaching dowsing. And I love it if I'm teaching dowsing and some people have never heard of the infinity wave. So I ask for a volunteer and I have that person stand on the opposite side of the room. And then all the other people are over here. And then they all get out their dowsing rods. I said, we're going to douse that person's energy field. So little baby steps, we get up to the person somewhere between 3 and 6 feet. Is their energy field? Fine. Go back. Now, I want you to imagine a figure eight of flowing water, not naming it, not saying what it is. Just imagine a figure eight of flowing water between your heart and that person's heart for 30 seconds. So look on my, yeah, 30 seconds goes by. Okay, let's douse their field again. Inevitably, guaranteed, their field has grown threefold.
Wow.
Threefold. I've done it so many times.
Wow.
And so it's measurable. It's measurable.
That is so
And
beautiful. And this is all for free, just using our imaginations. Essentially, this is so beautiful. So I probably know the answer to this, Hope, but how much of this is the infinity shape and how much is the flowing water?
so glad you asked that. And I have to tell you that recently, when I drive is when I listen to YouTubes and this and that. And I had so enjoyed your YouTube, one of your YouTubes with Rory Duff, being another dowser, being another earth worker. And so I knew I had missed one from last fall. So very recently, as I was driving home from Florida, I found the one from last fall with Rory. And I'm listening. We're driving along. It's beautiful spring, coming spring landscape. And towards the end of it, I heard him say, well, we do a figure eight between us. Now, it wasn't of water. And he started to talk about the benefits of the infinity shape, the figure eight. And I'm in the car going, my God,
Yeah.
God, this is perfect. So let's talk about the geometry. The geometry is perfection. It really is. It's a circle flipped. And I believe that flip is so important because of what I already described about this expansion and contraction mechanism in the cosmos, in the universe. It's always going to expand and contract. And it's also a way for us to hold a form that is aligned, that's perfectly balanced, that is above and below. As I believe, as above, so below. I hold it a little differently than most people because I've been taught this through the wave, that the below is actually the earth and the above is the cosmos. And we are the little ones right in between, signifying our placement, this incredible blueprint placement that we are in between these two equally spiritual realms. That's how I see it. And so when we see the geometry of that perfect figure eight and imagine this placement that we are in, it's so beautiful. The earth, in her wisdom, in all her creativity, is limited in what she can effect on the surface of her. She needs humans to listen and take action. Likewise, the cosmos, the heavens, our guide teams, our stars, you name it, can't effect change that much. Even the sun, although it's doing its best, it takes us to divine a course of action from them. So we are these hands and feet and heads and hearts that can effect change in this reality. So that's how I see the geometry. Balance between masculine and feminine. It's aligned, whether it's sideways or up and down or tilted or however it appears to one, it's just got that inherently in it. Now the water is no accident. And thank goodness for Veda, because when this thing first came in, I asked the exact same question. What is this about? Why is it in this shape? And why is it water? And that started my deep dive, if you will, into water. And I had always, as an armchair scientist, been looking for a unifying theory. Like, It can't be that hard. It must be something that's right in front of our noses that we just ignore. It's so prevalent. We just take it for granted. And as I kept looking into water and Dr. Emoto and the other scientists who were looking into water, I kind of went, wait a second. Could water be this consciousness, this unifying principle? I know it's in space. I know it's everywhere in practically everything. What if it is completely conscious? What if it's that? And Dr. Emoto, God bless him, I read so many of his books, and he came that close to saying, water is God.
Yeah.
He didn't write it, but he did speak it in an interview that I heard with somebody who I follow. And he said it at the very end. He goes, water is God. I went, finally, I have it. I have it from his mouth.
Well,
And
and
I
I know
just
Veda thinks that too, because she's talked
think
about that often.
that too.
And the part of the reason I wanted to do this interview was I'm diving deep, excuse the pun, into water as well, because I think there's something very important between astrology and water. Actually, that's where I'm kind of headed at the moment. I'm just at the beginning of the rabbit hole, not at the other end of it, but that's my area of interest. So the water as consciousness, as part of this beautiful wave, was an increasingly important part for you in your work.
Yes, and I fell in love with water. And then I started to, of course, I would wave with water. And one day I was actually sitting in a hot tub in Southern California, finishing one of Emoto's books. And this it all came to me in this. I was in this hot tub and I was looking out on a sparkling sea with the sun on the water. And I realized, because I had by then begun to get these downloads, and I was in such an expanded state that I realized it's not just the water, it's the sun and the water, it's the light and the water, and that there's information in the light that is received by the water. And there is an interchange. And we know already that every 8 seconds it is the sun and the earth communicate.
Yeah.
There's a blast.
Yeah.
And I went, wait a minute, if the ocean, whether it's daytime or nighttime, the ocean is receiving light from the sun, which I believe is also conscious, and I've had very interesting interchanges with the sun. There is an ongoing conversation between them, and the water is the element where that communication happens.
And that's Selassie, the dwarf planet Selassie. Because Selassie, the dwarf planet, who in myth was the wife of Neptune, she's mermaid energy, but she is linked to the shimmering moonlight and sunlight on the sea. And of course, the water carries the light. The light carries the information. Water carries the light. And I also believe that she's very linked to the photonic light, that we're moving through the photon belt right now, this very concentrated high frequency light that is a big part of humanity's evolution right now. Wow. So there is so much in this that, that this is such a big part of astrology at the moment going forwards. Neptune in Pisces, Saturn in Pisces, Selassie being very prominent, Sedna. There is so much we're going to learn about water going forwards that we've just kind of thought of as something you turn on the tap if you're lucky enough to live in a Western, a first world country. But I believe water is absolutely primary in the most fundamental sense. It's kind of Christ consciousness as well, isn't it?
I'm so glad you said that. Yes, it is. And there are a lot of things that have been revealed to me over these years that I tiptoe around speaking it because it might sound a little too highfalutin. But one of the things that has been, excuse me, told to me, so I'll boldly say it here, Pam, when you think about the Christ consciousness from before, and the way it was represented by the fish shape with the tail like that. What was revealed to me is that this is the finishing of the tail.
Oh,
This
wow.
is actually the next iteration of Christed consciousness. And it is this time in a unspoilable design. It's not about language, even though we're having a good chat about it. It's not about, it can't be corrupted.
Yeah.
It's just a geometry made of water and can't be ruined.
So this is the big jump. This is the
This is
activation of the 24th chromosome. This is our entry into Christ consciousness, Homo luminous, and presumably also the wave will help you connect to galactic information as well. So we're
absolutely.
reunited with our galactic family and the ancient knowledge from the past as well, because that's always held in the water. It's never lost.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So I like to invite people to uh, center the wave in their hearts or their solar plexus, and then not only stop at the crown, but actually go up and in equal parts go down, and take it as big as you want, as small as you want. But when we start to do that is when we open the window to that consciousness that, we're all capable of receiving information from above and from below. And so when we expand the wave above and below, that's when, because I always say, look, this is a time of direct communication. There's no medium. I mean, I am one, but you don't have to have me or anybody else. I want you to go direct. I want you to get your own direct information, your downloads, your knowings. Before the wave came in, there was a part of me that still had yearning being a student. I wanted to move, best way I can say it is from believing to knowing. And that doesn't mean knowing in the I know it all kind of way. Gnosis. It's more about gnosis, that inner place that is unshakable, where my belief system can move over into a solid place. Not rigid, never rigid or dogmatic, but just that glowing ember in the heart of me that is solid, with my connection with my connection and knowing why I'm here and what I'm doing. When we get to that point, then we're unshakable in our understanding of what we're here to do. So that's what I wanted, and that's what I got with this journey of the infinity wave. This very scary, uncomfortable in the beginning journey, until I accepted it and took it on, and realized, okay, I guess this was actually what it's all been about.
But it's so beautiful, something this simple is
Yes,
actually infinitely multi-purpose because you
yes,
can use it within yourself to calm your heart, calm your emotions, your anxiety, your pain, improve relationships, or communicate with the greater galaxy.
yes,
You can use it micro, tiny inside, or you can use it infinitely. Hence the
yes,
infinity wave. So
yes,
it's that kind of simplicity but flexibility and universality, and it's impossible to corrupt or impossible to get wrong. All of that is just fabulous and so exciting for people as a tool. I mean, it is the spiritual tool for our time, isn't it?
it really is. It really is. And it's very exciting to be speaking with you, who totally gets it, and because you're working in the cosmos and you're working with the earth, and so to have a meeting of minds about it is very, I can't tell you how heartwarming it is for me, because it's been quite a solo journey for quite a long time. And so meeting the moment when it's ready to now really be spread, is very exciting. It's thrilling, actually. And so I I would love to share one little story so people can have a sense of how quickly this can work. At the end of that year, 2011, and by the way, having done 3 full workshops, which was 9 months of weekends, I was standing back as a scientist, kind of going, does this have legs? Everybody feels good after a weekend of love and compassion, but does it last? I really want to know if it lasts. And I was seeing that it did. So I was like, okay, I'm all in. And then I was doused that we were supposed to go to England in October. And so I doused the entire trip, and we had an unbelievable wave bubble experience where we just wafted from ancient site to ancient site and circles, and it was incredible. Okay, so I came away from that, and I was like, okay, I guess this is a real thing. And they had told me it's meant for the wide world. And I lived in rural Massachusetts next to a sheep farm. I didn't know anything about internet or like, okay, you're going to have to make this happen because I certainly can't. So in December of that first year, a dear friend of mine required very delicate surgery on her neck from an accident, required bone, muscle, and nerve. There was only one doctor who was in Beverly Hills, so I was her advocate, and we flew out there. She had studied about surgery, about hypnosis before surgery, which, by the way, is a wonderful thing to do. And one of the things they said was, write down on a piece of paper what you want the anesthesiologist to say when you go under and come out for better healing. And so she had it all written on a beautiful Italian paper, and we'd gone through the whole process. She was in her gown and her cap and in the gurney, and I was sitting at her feet. And the last thing was waiting for the anesthesiologist. So my friend is clutching her paper and understandably nervous. If one thing goes wrong, you're paralyzed. It's not a minor thing. So I'm kind of, chatting with her and trying to keep things light. In comes this woman with a clipboard like this and this pizza hat, a little mini pizza hat, kind of came up and puffed out with little red flecks on it. It was the strangest but cute surgical cap I'd ever seen. She goes and stands opposite me at the foot of the bed, head down, and begins to just rattle off medicalese. Okay, we're working on C3, C4, never once looking at my friend, never looking at me, which didn't matter, but, no contact whatsoever, no humanity, kind of like a person frozen in a block. And I could see my friend starting to get very nervous. Her eyes were getting big, her lip was a little trembly because she was thinking, there's no way this human being is going to take this piece of paper and do what I need her to do. And so I was looking at her, and now you asked about my evolution. If it had been a year earlier, I would have, in my human self, said, oh, doctor, my friend's really nervous. Would you just, just warm her up a little bit, like reassure her. I would have done something like that. But that's not who I was anymore. Much to my surprise, I sat there and I went, I like this picture. I want a different one. And out of my mouth, again, I didn't plant, but out of my mouth came the words, I like your hat. At the same time, out of my solar plexus was this boom, like that. It was a pop. I felt it. Boom. And she went like this. Her head came up. She swiveled to look at my friend. She said, hey, babe, how are you doing? Today I'm going to take such good care of you. You're going to do fine. You're going to have this. Oh, what's this for me? Is this for me to say for you? But I love to do that kind of thing. It looks like a recipe. It's so beautiful. Both my friend and I, our mouths were hanging open, our eyeballs were popping out because it was a nanosecond of 180-degree switch. And I cognitively was in shock. What happened? What happened? Well, this thing happened. And then I realized, again, the intelligence of the wave, it knew what was needed in that situation. a kind of a wave bomb in a way, a burst came from my will center, although it wasn't willed by me. It came and blasted that poor woman, who knows how many shifts, who knows how sleepless, who knows if she had kids at home who were sick, who knows what her life was that had drained all her love and compassion out of her like a dried sponge. When she got blasted with the wave, it allowed her to rise to her highest and best self. And she switched on. And she was just incredible. And a couple of days later, when my friend's anesthesia had worn off and she was back to herself, she said, "Hey, you know that anesthesiologist? The strangest thing happened to her when I was about ready to ask for another doctor. And then all of a sudden, like the light bulb went on and she switched into." And then I said, "Well, let me tell you what happened. I had a witness, thank God." And it was a huge learning opportunity for me. Not only that the wave knows what it's doing, thank you very much. Not only to not get all involved with my human interfering self, but to allow something bigger and better. And that speaks to intention, because we can have intentions, but I like to leave a lot of space around them, because a lot of times what's better, even best, beyond what we imagine can happen.
It's like a
And
love bomb, isn't it? It's like a love.
yes, yes. And then lastly, you know, um, all things are possible. Uh, uh, this wave can pack a punch. It's not just gentle. It's not just this lovely, calming thing. It has the capability of changing reality on a dime.
Wow. That is a beautiful statement. And it feels, Hope, as if there's so much more to discover about this. We're not at the
There
end,
is.
we're just at the beginning with the infinity wave. It's going to help us just, take us on a wave like a surfer to a higher
Yes.
state of being, a higher state of consciousness. If we can work
Yes.
with it and trust it, and it's so simple. Everybody can do this.
And Pam, last thing I'll say, in 2012 in January, the first week. So I've been looking for the infinity sign, the whole year. They said it's anchoring in at the end of 2011. Somebody hands me January 4th a cappuccino with the infinity sign in the foam. And we were off to the races, and now it's in everybody's logo. They don't know why.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like a cosmic joke, isn't it? Yes.
Yes, it's the most popular female tattoo. It's everywhere.
Your work is so beautiful, so loving, so healing, Hope, and you have certainly got a very big part to play as we move forward in this quantum jump in humanity's evolution. So God bless you for everything you're doing, and I've loved this conversation. I've learned so much myself. I've read your wonderful book. And I'll put Hope's website address underneath this video. But even having read the book, I've learned so much more from our conversation. And just thank you, thank you, thank you for staying with the wave, staying with the course, and helping us all to grow and jump into this new human, whoever that is going to turn out to be. So bless you. I hope everybody's
Thank you,
enjoyed this
Pam.
as much as I have. Anyway, thank you, Hope.
I've enjoyed it too. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay, lots of love, everyone.